power and influence extended from North Africa across the Mediterranean and to the Arabian Peninsula. Their intellectual and cultural legacy even further into deepest Central and South Asia. In the year 909 of the Common Era, a Muslim dynasty emerged to leave in its wake a rich heritage of trade, statecraft, and diplomacy, as well as scholarship, art, and craftsmanship. They reigned over territories with people of many different religions, cultures, and languages. They founded a city which became a vibrant political capital, a hub of commerce, and a renowned center of learning. Within and beyond that city, they created an unparalleled opportunity for creative expression. The Fatimids traced their genealogy to Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet Muhammad. A respected figure, Fatima was also the wife of Ali ibn Abi Talib, the Prophet's cousin and companion, whom Muslims of the Shia branch of Islam acclaim as their first imam or spiritual leader after the Prophet's death. For more than 2.5 centuries, under their patronage, literature, art, philosophy, and the sciences flourished. People of all faiths and backgrounds found in the realm of the Fatimids an unusually tolerant space for creativity. Entire blessing and perpetual well-being, perfect grace and health, felicity and happiness. The evocative words in Arabic calligraphy that decorate this silver-plated mirror from Fatimid Egypt transform this work of art into a timeless blessing. More than 800 years after the end of Fatimid rule, outstanding examples of Fatimid patronage of the arts and sciences were recently exhibited at the Institut du Monde Arabe in Paris and here in the Kunstlerhaus Museum in Vienna. Here, Dr. Shainul Jiwa, a scholar of Fatimid history, and Fahmida Suleiman, a doctoral student of Fatimid art, will guide us through some of the 200 artifacts carefully selected and assembled from museums and private collections around the world, giving a rare opportunity to appreciate the exercise of skill and imagination. The exhibit also allows us to learn of the great influence of Fatimid art beyond Muslim domains, all the way to the contemporary Christian world. The Fatimid dynasty dates from 909 CE, over 270 years after the Prophet's death, which had given rise to several Muslim dynasties. It's amidst the competing interests of these dynasties, spread across a vast area from Spain to India, that the emergence of the Fatimids must be situated. Historian Dr. Shainul Jiwa takes up the story.
The first Fatimid sovereign, the Imam Caliph Abdullah al-Mahdi, and his successors extended their control from Tunisia over other parts of North Africa, establishing the cities of Mahdiya and Mansouriya. During this period of expansion, the Fatimids also took possession of Sicily on the other side of the Mediterranean Sea. Their Muslim neighbors were the Umayyads of Spain at Cordoba and the Abbasids of Baghdad in the east. Their Christian neighbors were the Byzantines ruling from Constantinople.
His Highness the Aga Khan, the 49th hereditary Imam or spiritual leader of the Ismaili Muslims, reflects on what was achieved under the dynasty founded by his ancestor, the Fatimid Caliph al-Mahdi, who was the 11th Ismaili Imam.
Well, clearly the Fatimid Empire is part of my family's history. It's part of Ismaili history. It's an important part in the sense that it is, I think, an indication of the nature of humanistic attitudes which were allowed to flower in Egypt at the time, and with it the various cultural expressions. And the result was a very unique response, both in intellectual and cultural dimensions, and the exhibition here shows that, and I find it very exciting indeed. And of course it wasn't uniquely Egyptians who were part of that dimension, that people from all over the world came to participate in it. So in that sense it's an important aspect of the overall history of the Muslim world.
It was during their initial 60-year rule in North Africa that the great tradition of Fatimid patronage began. The arts blossomed alongside architecture, literature, and scholarship. This page of the Holy Quran, known as the North African Blue Quran, is the work of a professional scribe who expertly painted the gold lettering on an indigo-tinted parchment.
In 969 CE, the Imam Caliph Al-Mu'izz Lidin Allah, with the help of his general Abul Hussein Jawhar, entered Egypt. Here, through peaceful negotiations rather than military conquest, he founded Al-Qahira Al-Mu'izziyah, the victorious city of Al-Mu'izz, Cairo. Al-Qahira became the center of the Fatimid court, their imperial city, as well as palaces in Al-Azhar, which became a renowned center of learning. They constructed civic institutions, facilities for their army and government officials, and the majestic fortified city gates and walls. Very little remains of the architecture of the Fatimid palaces. What survives are the skillfully carved wood and marble panels which adorn the walls, ceilings, and doors of the Fatimid palaces. Nasiri Khusro, a poet-philosopher who was an Ismaili Da'i or emissary, traveled from Iran to Cairo in the 11th century and described in detail what he saw.
I estimated that there were no less than 20,000 shops in Al-Qahira. There is no end of caravanserai, bazaars, gardens, and other public spaces. The Sultan's palace is in the middle of Al-Qahira, as the ground is open all around it. Every night there are 1,000 watchmen who blow trumpets and beat drums at the time of evening prayer, and then patrol until daybreak. Viewed from outside the city, the Sultan's palace looks like a mountain because of all the different buildings and the great height. From inside the city, however, one can see nothing at all because the walls are so high. Al-Qahira has 4 major congregational mosques where men pray on Fridays. Cairo's stability and burgeoning prosperity was a magnet and a haven for artists and craftsmen who were attracted from far and wide and encouraged to offer their skills in the Egyptian workshops. No object was too simple to embellish. This bronze pail, for instance, proffers good wishes and security to its owner. Bronze water taps, fountainheads, and pouring jugs were shaped in the form of peacocks, lions, hares, and stags. At Fustat, the commercial center of the Fatimid Empire, artisans and craftsmen of all kinds competed and jostled with each other, producing wares for the local markets as well as for export. Amongst them, potters of rare skill. In Fustat, they make all types of glazed pottery so fine and translucent that one can see one's hand behind it when held up to the light. From this pottery, they make cups, bowls, plates, and so forth, and paint them so that different colors show depending on how the article is held.
Lusterware. Luster pottery was the most impressive accomplishment of the Fatimid potters. The luster was produced by using silver and copper oxide paints to give the pottery a luxurious sheen, transforming ordinary terracotta to make it look like gold and other precious metals. But the technique was difficult and it was expensive. The process was a secret, closely guarded within the families of potters. As time went by, they migrated and spread the technique throughout other parts of the Muslim world and beyond.
While walking through the lamp market of Fustat, I saw a rock crystal of perfect beauty and artistically worked by craftsmen of elegant taste.
Like lusterware, items of rock crystal were created both in private royal workshops as well as in commercial workshops for the marketplace. One of the few court objects to survive is this impressive ewer or water pitcher, shaped and drilled from a single piece of rock crystal. Its body is decorated with seated leopards. The inscription invokes blessings on the Fatimid Imam Caliph Al-Aziz Billah. Also carved from rock crystal, lamps, dishes, chess pieces, royal seals, and perfume bottles.
Imagine this small piece to be part of a large linen cloak. The central figure in this piece is of a distinguished man riding on a white horse, and he seems to be aiming a bow and arrow. Just by recognizing the quality of the linen and the silk, the painstaking workmanship gives you the feeling that this was really a ceremonial cloak.
Robes such as these were worn at ceremonies at that time, and there were a number of ceremonies. There was the Eid to celebrate the end of the Ramadan fast, for example. There was the Eid to celebrate the festival of Qadir Khum. There was the spring festival of Nowruz, and many ancient festivals.
A large number of textile fabrics made of decorated linen have survived from the period. These textiles took their name from the workshops that produced them, tiraz. With their intricate decorative bands, these tiraz were once part of garments worn by both men and women. They were embroidered or woven with the name of the Imam Caliph, the date and place of production, and sometimes a sacred phrase or blessing. The tiraz were robes of honor, given either as special rewards on high occasions or more usually awarded annually to court dignitaries, senior officials, and their families. Tiraz fabrics were also used in the burial rites of the rulers and their families. A long-standing royal industry, their manufacture, unlike lusterware and rock crystal, was under the patronage and exclusive control of the court.
As both heads of state and religious leaders, the Fatimids supported the building of institutions such as places of worship, libraries, and centers of learning. In these centers, special sessions were organized for women, high officials, and travelers from abroad. An eyewitness describes the inauguration of the Darul Ilm, or House of Knowledge.
The jurists took up residence there. Lectures were held there by Quran readers, grammarians, astronomers and philologists, as well as physicians. In this house, they brought books that the commander of the faithful Al-Hakim Bi'amr ordered to bring there, that is, the manuscripts in all the domains of science and culture, to an extent to which they had never been brought together for a prince. He allowed access to all this to people of all walks of life, whether they wanted to read books or dip into them.
Sadly, the destruction of the royal libraries has left us with only fragments of manuscripts, hinting at the vast collection that once existed.
This piece was found in Old Cairo, and it is one of the few remaining pieces of drawing on paper from the Fatimid period. If you look closely at the drawings on this piece, you will see that the guard on the right is wearing an Arab turban, while the guard on the left is wearing a headgear of feathers, not unlike the feathers of the medieval Turkish guard. Also significant are the intricate Arabic armbands on both of the guards, which signifies that they were working for the state.
And it's well documented from that time that the Fatimid administration employed people from a variety of religious and cultural backgrounds, and they employed them on the basis of their skills and their expertise.
The Fatimids also promoted individual patronage of the arts and architecture. Male and female members of their families, along with court officials, were encouraged to endow and build local mosques and to establish awqaf, or religious endowments. This kilga, or marble water basin, is an example of the kind of endowment one could offer a mosque. It was used to support a water jar, which held cool and refreshing water for religious ablutions or simply to quench the thirst of a traveler. The carved calligraphy conveys messages of eternal peace and happiness. The Fatimids built a number of mausolea, adding to the architectural richness of Al-Qahira. Lam Yalid wa Lam. The incomplete phrase on this gravestone would have been recognized by any Muslim in Fatimid Egypt. It is from Surat al-Ikhlas, the Quranic chapter of sincerity, and stresses the absolute and independent nature of Allah.
In the Fatimid state, the long-established Jewish and Christian communities, as people of the book, maintained their own religious customs and observances, whilst contributing to the political, economic and cultural scene. Many prominent court officials were from these communities. Fatimid policies encouraged Muslims, Jews and Christians to work together. They traded goods and commodities, as well as ideas and skills. The dovetailing of cultures and religions was reflected prominently in the work of artists and craftsmen. A large repository of Jewish documents from the Fatimid period was discovered in a synagogue of Old Cairo. Known as the Cairo Geniza documents, they include personal letters from merchants, as well as official papers by clerks of the Fatimid court. One of the letters contains a vivid account of transactions by a merchant from Alexandria on behalf of his cousin living in Kairouan. My brother, who is very dear to me, may God prolong your life and preserve your happiness. In your letter you asked that I purchase on your behalf the very same goods which I acquire for myself. I was able to buy 2 bales of blue indigo dye. This indigo is a better quality than that bought by others. May God see to its safe arrival. I have also bought, in partnership with Abdurrahman, a quantity of loose and strung pearls. I also purchased 10 flasks of musk at a price of 53 dinars. News has reached me that the European merchants have made large purchases of beads from you. I hope that you fared well in these transactions.
The diplomatic activity of the Fatimids and their exceptionally widespread commercial interest is clearly demonstrated in this account from the 11th century Book of Gifts and Rarities. It describes the majestic gift offered by the Imam Caliph Az-Zahir li-Izaz ad-Din Allah to his governor in North Africa.
Imam Az-Zahir sent him a great gift, among which were exotic specialities from India, China and Khorasan, varieties of scents, precious stones and other things. He sent clothes, fabrics for furnishings, wall hangings and flags made of the purest Egyptian linen. he also sent him a wonderful, handsome giraffe with its saddlecloth and its ornamental trappings.
Fatimid diplomacy extended beyond Muslim boundaries and was reciprocated by the Norman kings of Sicily and the Byzantine emperors. In 1036 CE,
the Emperor Constantine sent a gift to the Caliph al-Mustansir Billah as he corresponded with him regarding the renewal of the 10-year peace treaty. No former Byzantine emperor had ever offered a similar gift to any of the previous caliphs of Islam. The gift consisted of 150 she-mules and selected horses, each of them covered with a brocade saddlecloth. Among the contents were 100 gold vessels of various kinds inlaid with enamel, and 1,000 pieces of excellent silk brocade and red Byzantine sashes bordered in gold. Also included were turbans of a fine fabric embroidered in gold.
And have a look at these bird-shaped earrings. If you look closely, you will see the detailed filigree work and the very tiny grains of gold applied to the piece. This just demonstrates the technique of the Fatimid jewelers and the sophistication of the time. This is a better example of the granulations of gold.
Jewelry at that time had the name of Allah, Muhammad, Ali, the first four caliphs, or even the stylized hand of Fatima as talisman on the ring and other jewelry. And people believed at the time that this jewelry then protected them from misfortunes.
Fatimid gifts were highly regarded. Lustreware, for example, was taken to Italy by merchants and ambassadors, and some of the pieces became part of the permanent decoration on the facades of Italian churches. Another example of the influence of Fatimid art and craftsmanship is found in the Cappella Palatina, a chapel in Sicily, built by the Norman king Roger II. He enjoyed the friendship of the caliphs of his time, and evidence suggests that he employed skilled architects, carpenters, and painters from Egypt to build and adorn his chapel.
From the end of the 11th century onwards, the power and influence of the state began to decline. Chaos in internal administration was followed by a 7-year famine, public riots, and the final takeover of Egypt by the Ayyubid dynasty. Fatimid libraries were destroyed, and the treasury repeatedly looted. By the time the Ayyubids succeeded the Fatimids in 1171 CE, many valuable objects had found their way to Europe, where they were embellished with jewels and precious metals and given Christian significance as reliquaries and church treasure. The objects that survive of this fascinating period in Islamic history are now dispersed throughout the world. The exhibitions in Paris and Vienna of Fatimid art on loan from private and public collections brought together many of those priceless objects. These artifacts and what remains of the legacy of the stately architecture in the old capital of Cairo give us a rare glimpse into a rich and sophisticated civilization. A world of power and influence, but also one of high culture that thrived at a time when the West had yet to emerge from the Dark Ages.
There was great purity of design, great synthesis in expression, great sensitivity to movement, to shape, to color. And I think all that art really was very, very unique for that period in human history.
This was the world of the Fatimids.